Greetings all, my name is Linda Chernis and I'm the archivist at the Gala Queer Archive in Johannesburg, South Africa. I want to start by just giving you a quick overview of Gala and the work that we do to put us in context. Gala was formed in 1997 to address the erasure and omission of queer histories, stories and experiences from public institutions and archives in South Africa. We house over 200 collections, and these include organizational material from LGBTIQ organizations and campaigns, as well as personal collections which include letters, diaries, photographs, and memorabilia. We also have a large amount of material relating to protests, pride marches, and cultural events. We are located on Wits University campus, although we are an independent NPO that relies solely on donor funding. Due to size constraints, our collections are stored off-site and ordered in as requested or needed, and then accessed by our researchers at our offices. We have a community library on site, which is used frequently as both a library resource and as a safe and social space for the LGBTI community, mostly students from Wits University and surrounds. In addition to the archive program, Gala is also involved with research, oral history projects, youth work, public education, exhibitions, and book publishing. Material in our collections has been used by researchers spanning many academic disciplines and professions, including filmmakers, journalists, artists, and activists. With all the changes and challenges of the last 18 months, archives, like everything else, had to adapt. While preparing this presentation, I was struck by just how much we, as a small self-funded archive, have adapted, expanded, and accomplished since last year. These adaptations have brought to the fore problems as well as opportunities. Shutting the doors to archival research for extended periods has not been ideal. We were extremely fortunate in that we had just completed a digitization project of 25 of our collections through Gale Cengage, and these collections went live as part of the Archives of Gender and Sexuality series in March 2020, just as we closed our doors. So although we already knew the importance of digitizing and had already begun to embark on this journey, COVID really brought home how essential it is to be able to give researchers the option to explore collections remotely, as well as having access ourselves when working from home. The experience of referring researchers to Gale over the last year has been comforting and encouraging. In addition to collections hosted by Gale, we also have selected material and collections hosted on the Trans Digital Archive website, where I frequently refer researchers as well. Although there are obviously enormous positives to digital access, there are also some cons and concerns. Most would agree that handling and seeing material physically is a much richer archival experience. And digital access also cuts out much of the interaction between archivist and researcher, which often leads to fruitful conversations and exchange of knowledge. A less obvious consequence for us is that we lose track of who is accessing our archive, what they are researching, and what they are producing using our collections. This has quite an important implications for us. One of our primary core funders requests us to keep statistics, tracking archival access and use, and being able to show the vast and varied access and outputs helps keep us funded. It is presumed that over time, researchers might go directly to online resources and bypass connecting with Gala at all. One way of trying to adapt to this is to ask digital hosts such as Gale and DTA to keep statistics of how many people accessed our collections and which collections online. And this is something I have started to discuss with Gale. On the flip side, we do get a percentage of annual sales from Gale for 10 years, and this is a new source of funding for us, which can go straight to core costs with no deliverables attached. To return to the effects of lockdown on the archive, working remotely encouraged us to engage more online. Again, this was something we were already doing, but gave us the push to really embrace storytelling and the sharing of the archive through social media. I started sharing weekly lockdown articles, focusing first on archive collections and then on specific items. And although these became less frequent as normal archive commitments returned, think funding proposals, funding reports, archive research projects, staff meetings, we have continued with them. This has also been a way of reaching the public when exhibitions haven't been possible. We have also increased our publication output over the last 18 months. Again, this can be seen in part as a reaction or alternative to exhibitions and other live public events, a way of sharing material without being physically together. For 2020, we had planned an international conference in Maputo, Mozambique. This event was booked and fully funded, with speakers coming from across the global south and a few from the north. The conference was an extension of what had begun as an oral history project capturing stories of queer people in Maputo in their native Portuguese. As part of the conference, we were to curate a small exhibition of photographs and accompanying excerpts from some of these interviews. The conference and exhibition were postponed and eventually cancelled, and what was once a tiny part of a much bigger project became our focus. The catalogue of the exhibition that never was became a book, as we were able to redirect funds towards this. Outros Corpus Nossos, or Other Bodies of Ours, went to print in July. The cancelled Mozambique Conference also led us to invite the would-be delegates to participate in our co-hosted Intimate Archives webinar series, as well as our Talking Queer podcast series. The 8-episode series was a first for us, another new way of sharing the archive and research with a virtual audience. Another publication that became a much larger project due to circumstances is Hopes and Dreams That Sound Like Yours, a collection of stories of queer activists from around Africa that were workshopped and edited. Initially, we were just asked to share some of these to our mailing list, but we loved the project, had extra funding due to cancelled travel and events, and had time to work this into a book, for which we also commissioned illustrations from queer designers. But the main reason I'm mentioning this project is because for the first time, we shared videos of contributors reading their stories and poems on our social media platforms. The writers were given a Zoom workshop on how to record themselves, as well as data, which we paid for. So again, we have adapted our traditional book publishing, or rather expanded it, to make it more interactive, digital, and accessible. The book is available as a free download, and we are currently printing hard copies, because we feel that digital should be an addition to, and not a replacement, of physical publications where possible. Of course, we are not the only ones to have increased our online and digital efforts. The last 18 months have seen an explosion of digital content and events across the world, across different platforms, media, and subjects. And as an archivist, this has caused me much anxiety. An anxiety that existed before, but is now greatly exacerbated. How do we collect and save all this digital content? Do we even try? During the first months of the pandemic, I tried desperately to archive queer organizing, events, responses, and campaigns and experiences of and in response to the pandemic and lockdown. And although we had some success, I also realized that I couldn't capture it all. We collected online content from 6 selected queer organizations in South Africa over a 3-month period. You can see some examples on the screen here. I found it helped when I put a limit on both the number of organizations we were covering and the length of time. At Gala, we are committed to trying to archive the present as well as the past, especially as we are left with less and less tangible archive material in the digital age. Some examples of archiving the present include making sure that queer voices and experiences aren't left out of major events and movements. In 2015 and 2016, we conducted an oral history project across 6 university campuses, capturing the experiences and involvement of queer and feminist students in the Fees Must Fall movement. For the COVID-19 pandemic, we created a Google questionnaire to capture queer experiences of the hard lockdown. We also commissioned a short film on homeless trans sex workers and the effects of lockdown in Cape Town, as well as 2 articles on queer experiences of COVID, one on queer healthcare workers and another on the effects of the pandemic on various LGBTIQ NPOs across Africa, the effects that COVID had on their organizing and their funding. I think that these kinds of projects are extremely important, as we know that this pandemic is going to be researched and analyzed from every angle in the coming years. Projects we initiate ourselves as an archive are easy enough to incorporate into the archive. However, I feel somewhat at a loss trying to capture all the work and projects and events being done by others around queer issues at this time. We don't want to be a passive archive that just waits to accept whatever may be donated to us. But I know we also have to accept that we are a very small team with limited funding that can't capture, save, process, and inventory everything that is happening online. This is a process I'm still trying to navigate, and I would love to hear how others deal with this. I think I will leave you on that note. I look forward to meeting you all on the 17th of September and discussing some of these issues and innovations in your own archives. Thank you.